Pharrell Williams never left the industry, but something about him doesn't feel the same anymore. Do you notice it? A creative genius who shaped global music behind countless billion-view hits now exists in a quieter, more controlled version of himself. Not the silence of rest, but a shift that feels intentional. And when Katt Williams started exposing Hollywood's hidden power structures, it only added fuel to the questions already forming around figures like Pharrell. So the real question isn't where he went, it's what changed him. Pharrell Williams, the genius who once felt untouchable. Have you ever noticed how some songs become iconic in seconds? That's Pharrell's influence. He doesn't just produce music, he defines how it feels. From Britney Spears' I'm a Slave for You, to Justin Timberlake's Señorita, to the global hit Happy, Pharrell has never followed trends, he creates them. Alongside Chad Hugo as the Neptunes, he helped dominate an entire era of music. At their peak, a massive portion of US radio reportedly carried their influence. From Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot to Gwen Stefani's Hollaback Girl, their sound shaped mainstream culture. But Pharrell didn't stop at music. He reshaped fashion and identity. With Billionaire Boys Club and Ice Cream, he merged hip-hop with high fashion before it was common. Even his presence at events, like wearing shorts at the Oscars, challenged industry rules. Then came the symbol everyone remembers, the oversized Vivienne Westwood hat at the 2014 Grammys. It wasn't just fashion. It felt like a statement, bold, strange, untouchable. A final expression of the rebellious skateboard P. But after that moment, the shift began. The hat disappeared, replaced over time with luxury suits, diamond-studded accessories, and a far more controlled public image. That change feels important, like something unspoken was adjusted. The chaotic creator became a polished global luxury figure under Louis Vuitton. Some believe this reflects a deeper truth about the industry, where individuality gets refined into something more manageable when influence becomes too large. Because Pharrell's real power was never just fame. It was control of sound and culture itself. One beat, one snap, one idea from him could shift global taste. And that's the key point. When someone reaches that level, they are no longer seen just as artists. They become forces inside a much bigger system of influence. It sounds cold, but that's how the system works. At that level, a person isn't just talent anymore. They become an asset, something that can be shaped, guided, and adjusted. Someone who influences millions through sound alone. That's not just creativity, that's power. And power like that is never left fully free. That's why Katt Williams didn't say Pharrell disappeared. He said he changed. Not naturally, but deliberately. Because when you're too valuable to remove, you don't get destroyed, you get redirected into something safer. So the real question is Pharrell still writing his own story, or is it being written elsewhere? Look at the shift. The once unpredictable, experimental genius now feels more controlled, polished, and careful. His music, once disruptive, now feels smoother, built for luxury spaces, fashion, and global branding rather than breaking rules. So ask yourself, why would an architect of sound suddenly become this safe? Because the transformation didn't stop at music, it extended into identity. Today, Pharrell isn't just a creator. He's a luxury symbol, a face of high fashion, a global brand figure. On the surface, it looks like evolution, but underneath, it looks like repositioning. Because creators disrupt, but brand ambassadors maintain. In entertainment, unpredictable voices rarely stay untamed for long. They're either removed or absorbed. But there's a third option. They're kept because they're too valuable to lose. So instead of removal, there's refinement. Instead of silence, redirection. A genius placed inside a controlled structure. Visible, celebrated, but limited. Katt Williams' point is simple. The industry doesn't destroy its biggest stars, it manages them. You don't get erased when you're profitable. You get aligned. That's why Pharrell is still everywhere. Luxury brands, fashion houses, global campaigns. Not random presence, but placement. And in Hollywood, clean doesn't always mean free. No scandals, no chaos, no breakdowns can also mean a carefully managed image. Because over time, something shifts, freedom narrows, edges soften, expression becomes safer. Not because talent disappears, but because it's filtered. So the question becomes, evolution or control disguised as success? At the top, Success isn't just money, it's alignment. Not written contracts, but access, opportunity, and silence. Pharrell reflects this shift. From raw, experimental nerd energy to polished global icon. Still talented, but directed differently. The system doesn't remove influence. It uses it to shape culture, sell taste, normalize luxury. So you don't get erased. You get stabilized. And the real cost is invisible. Not destruction, but being kept. Kept, but softened. Kept, but contained. Kept, but made safe. Two paths exist: resist and fade, or align and rise, but with softened edges. Pharrell is still present, still powerful, still flawless in public view. But that raises the key question, not whether he exists, but what version of him is allowed to exist. Because in Hollywood, silence isn't absence, it's agreement. Not spoken, not written, but understood. And at that level, he's no longer just an artist. He's a controlled signal, visible, powerful, limited. The only question left is, who controls it? Because at the top, nothing comes without cost. Not money. Money is the reward. The cost is invisible. It begins with small choices. What you say, what you avoid, what you choose not to challenge. And over time, those choices define everything. Not because you don't understand, but because you understand the consequences. And over time, those decisions become a pattern. This is where the narrative splits. One version says Pharrell was consumed by the system. The other says he adapted to it. Because someone like him isn't naive. He's been inside the industry too long, worked with too many power structures, seen too much of how it operates. So if he's still here, still stable, still visible, still respected, then maybe it isn't luck. Maybe it's strategy. Not everyone chooses rebellion. Not everyone wants collapse. And not everyone is willing to pay the price of total honesty. Some choose to stay, but staying in a system like this requires trade-offs. You don't get to be fully unfiltered. You don't cross every line without consequence. You don't say everything you think. And that's where it becomes complicated. Because if this was a choice, then Pharrell isn't a victim. But that doesn't mean there was no cost. It just means the cost was accepted, calculated, managed, exchanged for something else: power, access, longevity, stability. A position very few ever reach, and even fewer ever hold. And that leads to the uncomfortable truth. In this system, no one is completely free. So the question remains, did Pharrell change? Or did he simply learn how to move inside the game without breaking it? Because at this level, you don't sign a contract. You become part of it.